can't solve the problem of illegal immigration without dealing with the welfare state. Both the fact that there are benefits that they receive by coming over, automatic benefits, they get Social Security with several months of working in this country, up to 18 months, and they can qualify for full benefits. And yet the welfare state also makes it, discourages our own people from working. And I think it's very true that there's a shortage of labor for certain amount of jobs, and if you find somebody working construction, I don't know about here, but I assume it's probably the same. In Texas, I know there'll be people working at 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and they're not American citizens. And they're working hard, and they are producing. At the same time, we have a lot of people that don't have to work. I mean, if you can get $6 or $7 by not working, why should you work for $8 or $9? You're only making $2 an hour. They don't have the incentive to work. So the welfare system encourages people not to work, and I don't see how you can solve that problem. But I would cut out the benefits. And somebody said, well, that's no big deal. You'd cut out the benefits from everybody else anyway, so what's the difference if you cut them out? But I don't like forced transfer of wealth, and I don't like the welfare state. And it's not lack of compassion, because I happen to believe that socialism and welfareism ends up with more people in poverty than if you just had free markets and a sound currency and individual liberty.
Libertarian insurance program anticipating President Hillary instituting national health insurance, putting me out of business, but that's okay, I'm ready to retire anyway. But my question is, on the Republican side, the perceived conservative is this Mitt Romney, who instituted socialist medicine in Massachusetts. And are you going to have an opportunity on any national debates coming up that you're going to be able to confront him, and I guess like to hear your comments about
that's a good question. It's probably a key question to the success of the campaign, because right now we're being squeezed. Those candidates that don't have the big dollars might not get into the debates. There were a few debates scheduled, and some have been canceled because the three major candidates who had all the money refused to come, and therefore the debates were canceled. And the other move is to pack all the primaries into 1 month or two. So you have to have all your money up front in order to compete. It's not nearly as democratic when you can go to Iowa and Arizona and New Hampshire and campaign on a grassroots campaign and get some traction and get some attention. They're trying to make sure that doesn't happen. There is one debate that's still on schedule, and it's held by the Ronald Reagan Library out in California. And hopefully that will stay on target, and we'll get to do that one. But the debates could be very, very helpful. Right now, I don't think it's a guarantee, and that would make a big difference. That would make the internet campaign that much more difficult. But if you do get some attention, it might stir up some excitement.
You're a constitutionalist, like many of us are, and an originalist, I think many of us are. The Constitution is a living document. Now, admittedly, radio and TV are not anticipating the Constitution, but it embraces them. How far does that go? How far from the original interpretations can we stretch things?
I don't think there's too much of a stretch that they imply that you have some property rights from the Constitution, your right to property. And I think you can define, our big problem was in the 20s that we didn't define radio frequencies as a piece of property. It was just something that the government licensed and can control and regulate and divvy up the loot, so to speak. No, if it needs clarification, there's nothing wrong with amending the Constitution. It would go more slowly. It would be a lot slower than depending on the courts to do it, depending on the president to pick and choose and have signing statements and just picking and choosing what he wants to follow, or the Congress that abuses the Constitution as well. Just think of, technically speaking, if you didn't think the Constitution was a living document, the agencies of government shouldn't have the right to pass laws. They write regulations and we accept them as laws. And they're more onerous and numerous than our laws themselves. But that's all Congress's fault. We're the ones that pass the law, create the agencies, and then forget about it. And sometimes even the agencies of government, I mean, can anybody really comprehend the tax code? They incomprehensible. That's good reason to get rid of it.
So you roll all that back?
Sure.
Do you roll back all the things that aren't
So
explicitly
that should be the goal,
constitutional?
sure.
Should be-
It's gonna, the way I see it, so much of this is gonna be rolled back, and it's gonna be rather chaotic. The foreign policy, the likelihood of us all of a sudden having a wise foreign policy and the troops start marching home, that's less likely to happen than us go broke, and we can't afford our empire anymore. And we can't afford the entitlement system, the numbers just won't add up. I think 100% of our income has to go to entitlements within about 10 or 12 years. So that's not gonna work. And we're gonna have a dollar crisis because we have been blessed by being allowed to print our gold, print world gold. We create the reserve currency of the world, and they're still trusting the paper. A lot of people complain about the Chinese, but they don't realize how much the Chinese are serving us because they're over there working and taking our paper. Of course, all our jobs are going over there. But that's going to end. I think the dollar crisis will be the end point, and I think we came awfully close to that ending in 1979 and 1980, but confidence was restored. But I think the fundamentals are worse now than they were in 1979 and 1980, so it's a matter of confidence. So tomorrow, there's a hot war going on in Iran, and oil's $200 a barrel, which is not far-fetched. That could be a little bit of a shake to confidence, and then the Social Security recipients who are totally dependent on it are going to have a tough time. They're going to get a check, but believe me, their standard of living is going to go down.
I'm going to buy ExxonMobil Monday.
There you go.
Caroline, as a doctor, have you, usually when you try to deal with the media and with members of the political system, you can sort of take advantage of the fact that you're a doctor and get more attention paid to you when you have opinions dealing with things like the Medicare mess and the Medicaid mess. Have you been able to get anybody to pay attention to your opinions on this?
Not very well. I've been disappointed in that because when I was in the 70s, there might have been one other doctor in Congress. Now there might be 10 or 12 MDs in Congress, but unfortunately they're like other people, the average run-of-the-mill, and they're not real good on many of these issues. Generally speaking, they would probably support medical savings accounts, but they're also very, I'll bet you most of the doctors that were in Congress a couple years ago when we had that prescription drug program, I'll bet most of them voted for it. So it's difficult. It's a philosophic struggle, and you'd think the doctors would be more helpful, but they like being congressmen too, and they think that they have to do that to be reelected, and they don't want to come across as being hard-nosed and not caring.
Congressman Todd Hartley with Phoenix News. I saw you on Fox News the other day. They graciously gave you about 3 minutes and acted as if they were doing a favor to people emailing in to give you that airtime. And with that, in consideration of how the popularity contest is played out and they're keeping smaller candidates out of the debates, how disingenuous, as somebody who's running now for president, how disingenuous does the real process of selecting the best candidate feel for a man in your shoes?
You mean, how do I respond to the system? And,
It's almost rigged against people that want to discuss the issues.
So the process is a problem, but the real problem is the government's so big and they have so much up for auction. It's sort of like saying, no, we need more regulation on the lobbyists and more campaign finance reform. And I say, no, we don't. We need to take away the power of government to auction off our lives and our money. I mean, everybody our works, they operate in their own self-interest. So the military-industrial complex, yeah, they might talk to themselves, you really need this weapon for national defense purposes. And like, yeah, when are we going to have the next tank warfare fight in order to save our country? But we have to keep building these tanks. So drug companies are the same way. So I think it's the fact that the government is so big, and I don't think it's a technical problem. It's a strategic problem of how big our government is and how much power they